thought I'd do a quick unscripted video today about something I've been reading recently. It really interests me, and I didn't necessarily want to give advice about it, but I just wanted to discuss it a bit, mostly because I'm looking for some content to make. I've been reading this book called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Now, you've probably heard of it, but the first law that I wanted to talk about today is law number 1, and it's called never outshine the master. Now, the point of this law, and I guess the point of the book as a whole, is to educate people on the correct way to approach and kind of achieve any kind of influence with other people in life. You could think of a book similar to it, like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. These two books are similar, right? 48 Laws of Power and How to Win Friends and Influence People. They're very similar books, actually, because they're both teaching you how to have influence over people. They're both teaching you how to be more likable within a political setting where there's lots of people. So take, for example, the job site. If you read either of these books are going to attempt to teach you, and hopefully you're going to learn how to be a more effective communicator, how to get more people to like and respect you, how to get more people to listen to you, how to get more people to basically do your bidding, or to be loyal to you, or to have any of these benefits that come with being a more likable person, being a more articulate person. And I think that anyone can use that in pretty much any stage of life. Hence why these books are so universal and why they're so helpful, right? So yeah, that's the point of the 48 Laws of Power, but also a lot of Robert Greene's books in general is just getting really good at politics, getting really good at people relations, right? Like public relations. That's basically what Robert Greene is all about. Presenting yourself in a way to other people where you may be putting on a mask, but at the end of the day, you're a lot better for it, because all human interaction at the end of the day is a form of the pursuit of power, right? It's a feature of human nature that we as people are going to pursue power in any kind of relationship, whether that's one-on-one, whether that's one-to-many, whether that's many-to-one, a classroom setting, a workplace setting, a romantic, sexual relationship. Any kind of relationship, there's going to be a pursuit of power, and someone's going to be on top, and someone's going to be on the bottom. And I don't know about you, but I would love to be the person on the top in terms of the pursuit of power if I can. So it sounds Machiavellian, it sounds selfish, it sounds like I'm a pretty evil person, but I think that this is the thought process that everyone's having. While people can be friends, while people can be lovers, there's still the human nature aspect where we all want power. We all have to pursue it. Power is a thing throughout any human relationship, and to deny its presence is probably the most dangerous thing that we can do with ourselves, right? Because if we don't recognize our potential to do evil, we're going to fall into evil every single time, right? So better to have a tool like the 48 Laws of Power, or How to Win Friends and Influence People, or any kind of human relations social engineering technique. Better to teach that to responsible people than to just hide it away and try to make sure that nobody really finds out about it, right? And just try and use it for yourself, for your selfish gain. Once we acknowledge our propensity to do evil, then we can start to combat it. We can start to make the world a better place once we truly understand ourselves. So, yeah, never outshine the master is the first law. And, well, what does that mean? Well, let's say I am in a kitchen, right? Let's say I'm working in an industrial kitchen and I'm a line cook, right? And if you know anything about restaurants or industrial kitchens, there's always the executive chef at the top. If you imagine this like a hierarchy, right? There's like the executive chef at the top. He's like the guy in charge. He's like the chief. And then there's the sous chef. And then there's like all the line cooks and all like the preparatory cooks and everything like that. So if I'm working as a line cook, for example, in an industrial kitchen, and I want to excel in my job as a line cook, I'm going to have to use the 48 Laws of Power on all of my peers as well as my superiors, so the sous chef and the executive chef. Law number 1 applies to this setting because I, as line cook, should not be trying to outshine the sous chef or the executive chef in terms of my knowledge or my skill. Even if I do have it, then it is a bad idea to start to try and outsmart, to try and demonstrate my abilities in the kitchen to be superior to that of the sous chef or the executive chef. Why? Because if I do that, if I demonstrate that I'm more competent than the people who are above me in this certain area of, cooking, then they're not going to like it. They're going to resent me because I'm outshining them, right? I'm blocking their light, right? I'm kind of like eclipsing them. You know what an eclipse is, right? It's like when the moon goes in front of the sun and then it kind of gets darker outside for a while. You don't want to do that to your superiors if you're a line cook in a kitchen, for example, because once you start to take away from someone's glory when they're in a position of power, once you start to take away from their glory, once you start to make them look like a fool, once you start to make them look, incredible, like they don't know what they're talking about, like they're some kind of clown in their position, and you can imply that, or you can demonstrate that by just doing better than them, or by just talking more competently than them, or by doing better than them in whatever area, then you're taking away from their glory. You're making them feel offended, right? And you don't want to do that, like never. Because once you do that, the person at the top, right? So let's say in this kitchen example, let's say if I correct the executive chef on his methods of, cooking pork chops or something. And if I'm like, hey, you shouldn't cook pork chops that way. You should do it this way instead of that way that you're doing it right now because food contamination and whatever. And like this way gets better texture, but you're doing it wrong. Or something like that. If I try and correct them in if I try and correct him in his doctrine of the kitchen, then I'm taking away from his glory. I'm making him look like a clown. I'm making him look like he's stupid. So you don't want to do that if you want to build any kind of power within the kitchen. Because what the executive chef is going to do once he finds out that I insulted him, he's going to kick me out of the kitchen. He's going to treat me worse. He's going to look down on me. He's going to try and turn my peers against me. He's going to want me out of the kitchen because basically I'm making him feel bad, and I'm also just making him look like a clown, right? And nobody wants to be mocked in any way, like either overtly or covertly. Nobody wants to feel like they're unimportant, especially if they're in a position of power where they think that they've gained their position by some kind of merit, which maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But nobody wants to feel like they're unimportant. Nobody wants to feel like they're powerless, right? This is a universal principle. This is communicated in the 48 Laws of Power as well as in How to Win Friends and Influence People, where you have to play to people's egos if you want to win them over to anything, right? So, yeah, that's basically the first law. Never demonstrate in any kind of way or imply that you are better than your superiors. This means not borrowing their ideas. This means not correcting them too much. Not like demonstrating just through your abilities or your talents that you're better than them, right? Like, let's say if I'm a line cook and I'm just super talented and I'm just super passionate about cooking and I'm just like a superstar chef waiting to happen. I don't want to demonstrate that while the executive chef is still in the kitchen. I want to take more covert ways to demonstrate that. Because once I start making better dishes than the executive chef or the sous chef or anyone above me, then I'm making them feel insecure naturally because I'm demonstrating that despite me being lower than them, I'm more competent than them. And because I'm more competent than them, I'm probably going to take them over one day. And nobody likes to feel like their position is being threatened. So yeah, that's what outshining the master looks like. Those are some negative examples of this law, but a positive example would be me going to the executive chef for help about a certain recipe, right? Me asking them for advice. Me crediting them when I'm giving advice to others, saying, the executive chef always does this, and it seems to work out for him, so you should try that. Or yeah, just like going to him for advice, or just kind of confiding in him with my problems within the kitchen, right? Just treating him like he is my master. Just treating him like he knows more than I do. Just treating him like he's the big chief within the kitchen, right? And then you make him feel important, and then he likes you, right? That's playing to human nature again. Universal law. Everybody talks about this. A real life example of this is I'm in band class at my school, right? I play the trumpet in my band, but the director of the band, right? Our music teacher, he's a normal guy, just like the rest of us. And I think my friend kept insisting on his own way when he talked to our band director about how sound happens. So basically what he did was, my band director was talking about how certain vibrations generate certain chords, and why different strumming techniques make different sounds and stuff like that. When my friend, who's all into this sciencey stuff, started trying to correct him, right? Like he started speaking over him when he was teaching the lesson, right? Like my band director would be asking a question of the class, or he would be explaining a technique, and then my friend would yell. He'd be like, "Oh, that happens because of resonance frequency," or something like that. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you speaking in that situation over the guy whose literal job it is to teach band class and to teach how sound works? Why are you speaking over him? It's like so arrogant. Like, you're assuming that you know more than this guy because you've watched a couple of YouTube videos on freaking NASA engineering with sound waves or whatever. But even worse than that, you're still like insisting that you're right, and you're still like, despite all of the facts that the band director's throwing at you, despite all the times he's correcting you, you're still insisting that you in fact are correct in your assumption of these certain things that are completely against what he's teaching, and which are also, as a result, just a complete attack, like an all-out assault on his ego, right? How could you be so stupid as to try and correct the head honcho around here about his ability in music? This guy has been playing piano for like half his life at least. Ever since he was 5 years old, he's been just like plinking away at a keyboard. He's been learning this stuff. Like, music is his life. He has devoted his life to directing a choir and bands and just making these amazing displays of musical talent, where like he's already devoted his life to music. He's devoted all of his effort towards it. And you're here. You're this little kid. You're this little skinny high school kid who plays the baritone in his band, and you're trying to correct him on his knowledge in music. Not only are you probably wrong, but you're probably making yourself look like an absolute idiot. You know what happened to my friend? Well, everybody laughed at him. Everybody thinks that he's like dumb. Everybody thinks that like his head is too big for, his body. Everybody thinks he's full of hot air, and maybe they're right, because like, it doesn't matter if you're correct in that situation. He's not gonna like you for like a long time because you corrected him about something that he's basically the master at within the school, at least. So it was just very foolish to see that happen. It was just kind of disappointing to see that like my friend had absolutely no idea of how to handle this situation, because he literally just like annihilated his reputation in front of the entire class, right? Like he just removed any kind of influence or fervor he could have gained in front of the band teacher and the resulting promotions that could have come up as a result of that, right? He just took his potential position as #1 student and just put himself like solidly at the bottom. And because of that, he has absolutely no influence in our class, right? If there's like a promotional position for him that could come up, the other person is always going to get chosen over him, because he has absolutely no favor in the eyes of our band director. Even though my friend takes the class so seriously, he's never going to get a promotion because he's acting like a complete idiot in the class, right? So it does take a while to repair that kind of reputation. Some famous person once said that reputation takes years to build and seconds to destroy, and that's just one example where a reputation is so easy to destroy just by letting a word slip, or just by not thinking before you speak, or by just insisting on your own way in your own ego. So really, what you gotta do if you want to win any kind of influence is to treat the master in your craft, or your mentor, like they know absolutely everything, and always go to them for advice instead of trying to speak over them or correct them or give them advice. So yeah, that's just one example of like how foolish it is to try and outshine the master if you want any kind of influence within a social situation. This is a direct violation of the first law of power. Not to say it's the most important law, but it's a very important law, because he is making him feel like he's unimportant, right? Never poke the bear. Never make the person above you think that they're incompetent if you want to get ahead in any kind of position, right? This applies to your parents. This applies to your family even. Don't make people feel like they're stupid. Don't make people feel like they're dumb. You should go to them for help, or you should devote your works to them, right? Or you should just try and add to their radiance to appeal to their ego and eventually get closer to them in terms of their position in the hierarchy, right? Because I was doing gym vlogs, and while those were going okay, I really wasn't that passionate about them. It kind of got boring and repetitive after a while because really my workouts are pretty much the same every day that I do them, right? I have like the split with the 3 different days, right? Like chest and back, legs, arms, and I just kind of cycle through all of those. It's pretty predictable what I'm going to be doing in each video, right? Like if I do a video on arm day, I'm going to be doing the exact same exercise as I did on the last arm day, and the arm day before that, and the one before that, right? So I just thought that that type of content was quite boring. So yeah, that's just a little content update. I'm definitely still going to be doing food vlogs. Once I get some time in the kitchen, that is. So stay tuned for that. I'm definitely going to try more of that out. I'm very, very excited to start investing more of my time and energy into that kind of stuff. But for now, I think I might still be making you know, educational-based content where I'm just talking to the camera and see who pops in and enjoys it. And yeah, just see what happens, because I do like making these kind of videos, and it is something I like to pursue a bit more in the future, you know, podcast style content where I'm just talking to the camera about stuff that I've learned, like a pretty intellectual stuff that crosses my mind and that, you know, I'm just quite interested in. So naturally, if I'm interested in it, I want to share it with like-minded people. So that's the beauty of the internet, I suppose. Once you try and point out the mistakes of somebody above you, once you try and point out their imperfections, you kind of offend God in a way, right? Because since this person is above you, they're kind of like a god. That's kind of how they think of themselves, right? Because of human nature, we're just so selfish and solipsistic that we kind of think of ourselves as a god, especially when we're in a position of higher authority, when we're placed above people. So we don't want to feel like we are stupid, like we are unimportant, like we are below certain people, right? So never make people feel like that. Always play to their perception of them being God. That applies to the courts of kings, that applies to bank class, that applies to kitchens, restaurants, that applies to every professional setting. It even applies to families, right? Like you can use this on your parents, you can use this on your family members to make them feel like they're more competent than you, right? Again, this sounds evil, but then again, it's better than just letting this knowledge sit in like some book on the shelf and never talk about it. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today's video. I just thought I'd ramble on for a bit about the first law of power, and I might talk about this more. Yeah, I probably will. So yeah, just stay tuned for more stuff like this, and we'll see what happens. See ya.